I believe wisdom is learning before life has to teach you the hard way. Now here's a truth most never consider. Building a rich financial future has less to do with the size of your paycheck and more to do with the size of your thinking. Because wealth is a mindset long before it becomes a reality. It's the discipline to act when no one's watching. It's the patience to plant seeds you won't harvest tomorrow. It's the humility to say, I don't know yet, and the hunger to learn. And here's what I've learned in my own life. Money is a magnifier. It doesn't change you, it reveals you. If you're undisciplined without it, you'll be undisciplined with it. If you ignore small financial habits now, you'll watch bigger opportunities slip through your fingers later. So today, I want to invite you to think differently. Not just about wealth, but about the small, quiet steps that lead to it. Because the good life, the wealthy life, it isn't for the lucky, it's for the prepared and preparation. My friends, starts with simple steps anyone can take, starting right now. Let me tell you something I've learned after watching people climb or stumble through the journey of building wealth. The ones who thrive aren't always the smartest, the fastest, or the most connected. But they share one vital trait. They stay adaptive. They remain open to change. Life doesn't hand out warnings before it shifts direction. Markets evolve, technology disrupts, industries transform, and if you've locked your thinking into one way, one method, or one belief, you risk becoming obsolete financially and otherwise. I've seen it play out time and again. Years ago, I knew a man who built his entire success on one product, one skill. It worked beautifully for a while. But when the tides of the marketplace shifted, he refused to adapt. New technologies emerged, competitors innovated, consumer preferences changed, but his mindset stayed fixed. Within a few short years, the empire he built turned into a memory. His income dried up, his influence faded, and all because he held too tightly to what worked yesterday, forgetting that success is rented and rent is due every day. Now, contrast that with people I've known who treated change as an ally, not an enemy. They stayed curious. They learned new skills. They embraced evolving tools. I remember when personal computers were just starting to reshape business. Some scoffed, dismissed it as a fad. Others leaned in, learned the systems, adapted their thinking. The ones who adapted, they're still thriving. Their wealth expanded, their opportunities multiplied, all because they stayed teachable. The financial future belongs to the flexible. I often say, success leaves clues, but only if your eyes are open to see them. You've got to observe where the world is heading, not just where it's been. Ask yourself regularly, what new method, what new technology, what new idea could make me more efficient, more valuable, more prepared for what's coming? It's not about abandoning your principles, those stay steady. But your methods, your tools, your strategies, those must evolve. So, never fall in love with just one way of doing things. Fall in love with growth. Fall in love with becoming adaptable. Because in a world that never stops changing, the greatest risk isn't change itself, it's your refusal to change with it. One of the simplest truths I ever learned about money is also the one most people seem determined to ignore. It's not complicated. It's not flashy. But it's the foundation of every fortune ever built. Spend less than you earn. You see, wealth isn't about income alone. I've met people earning six figures, living like they've made it, only to be one missed paycheck away from collapse. Why? Because no matter how much money flows in, if more flows out, you'll always feel broke. You'll always live under pressure. You'll always be owned by your expenses. When I started out, I didn't have much. In fact, I remember times when the numbers didn't add up, when I had to stretch every dollar, watch every penny. But there's something interesting that happens when you discipline yourself to live below your means, even by just a little. It creates space. Space for peace of mind. Space for savings to grow. Space for opportunities to come knocking and for you to actually have the resources to answer. I often tell people, don't be deceived by appearance. Driving the fancy car, wearing the expensive watch, living in the big house, none of that means wealth if debt is holding it all together like string and tape. That's a mirage, not financial independence. True wealth comes quietly. It comes when your expenses are less than your earnings. And that gap, that beautiful gap, gets wider over time. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Maybe it starts with one small adjustment, cutting a subscription you barely use, cooking a few more meals at home, saying no to impulse purchases that fade after a moment. I did those things. I still do. And those little savings, they compound, they grow, and before you know it, you've got breathing room, you've got surplus. You've got capital working for you, instead of you working endlessly for capital. The world will always tempt you to spend more to prove your success with things. But remember, it's not the size of your paycheck that determines your future. It's the discipline to spend less than you earn. Master that, and you've mastered the first law of building lasting wealth. The greatest investment I ever made wasn't in real estate or stocks or businesses. It was in my own mind. You see, long before you invest in assets, you have to invest in understanding. Because the marketplace doesn't reward ignorance, it punishes it. And those punishments, they're expensive. They come disguised as bad deals, missed opportunities, financial stress, even total loss. That's why knowledge, the right kind of knowledge, is your first line of defense and your greatest source of advantage. I remember when I was young, eager, and ready to jump into the game of wealth. But I made myself a promise. Before I put $1 into the world, I'd put $10 worth of wisdom into my head. I studied, I listened, I asked questions, I paid attention to people who were where I wanted to be, and I learned something critical. Most people lose money not because they're unlucky, but because they're uninformed. They rush in with excitement, but without education, and the marketplace has no mercy for that. The wealthy know this. They buy books before they buy assets. They seek mentors before they seek returns. They understand that every dollar spent sharpening your thinking protects thousands later on. You can avoid years of setbacks with one piece of insight. You can sidestep costly errors with one good question to the right person. That's leverage, and it starts in your mind. People ask me, where should I put my money? I always say, start by putting it into your own development. Learn about how money works, how markets behave, how to spot a good opportunity from a bad one. Because when you grow your understanding, you grow your capacity to handle wealth. Otherwise, even if fortune comes, you won't keep it. It'll slip right through your hands. It doesn't matter if you're starting with a little or a lot. The principle is the same. Build your foundation on knowledge. Read, study, attend seminars, have conversations with those who've walked the path. That way, when you invest your money, you'll do it with clarity, confidence, and the wisdom to protect and grow it. Knowledge first, assets second. That's how lasting wealth begins. One of the most powerful lessons I ever learned about wealth, success, and building a future is this. Your goals aren't set in stone. They're living, breathing guides for your life. You see, most people make the mistake of writing down their goals once, maybe at the start of the year. Then they close the book and never look at them again. And they wonder why the months drift by, why the progress stalls, why the dreams stay dreams. But the wealthy, the truly intentional people, they treat their goals like a map. They check regularly, they revisit them, refine them, adjust them, and make sure they're still aligned with the direction they want their life to go. I remember early in my career, I sat down with a mentor who asked me, "What's your goal?" And I rattled off a number. I wanted to make this much money, have this kind of life, hit this level of success. He smiled and said, "Good. Now how often do you review it?" And the truth was, I didn't. I wrote it down once, tucked it away, and hoped life would somehow carry me there. But life doesn't work on hope. It works on habits, on clarity, and on constant course correction. You've got to think of your goals like the captain of a ship thinks of the compass. You don't check your heading once and forget about it. You check it often, because currents change, winds shift, new obstacles appear. Life's the same way. Your circumstances will evolve, your knowledge will grow, sometimes your priorities will change. So you must come back to your goals every quarter at least, and ask, are my daily habits, my actions, my thinking still aligned with this vision, or have I drifted? And sometimes it's not about changing the goal, it's about sharpening the focus, adjusting the strategy, tightening the routine. Other times, it's about raising the bar, realizing you've outgrown your old vision and it's time to stretch yourself even further. The wealthy understand this. Their goals aren't static, they evolve with them. That way, every day, every small decision moves them closer to the future they've intentionally designed, not the future they've left to chance. That's how true wealth is built, brick by brick, adjustment by adjustment, staying aligned with your vision every step of the way. One of the greatest misconceptions people carry when it comes to wealth is this: they confuse high income with financial success. They look at the paycheck, the job title, the revenue, and think, I've made it. But let me tell you, it's not what you make, it's what you keep that builds wealth. That's why I always remind people, prioritize profits over earnings. Income is what flows in. Profits are what stay, grow, and multiply for your future. I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career. I remember there was a time when I started earning more money than I ever had before. Bigger commissions, bigger opportunities, and with that came bigger spending, a better car, expensive dinners, little luxuries here and there. On paper, I was doing great. But when I looked at my bank account, when I looked at my investments, my savings, my real progress, it told a different story. The truth was, despite all that earning, I wasn't keeping much. And if you're not keeping, you're not building. It's that simple. See, wealth isn't measured by income streams, it's measured by surplus. The dollars that stay with you, that you save, invest, and let compound over time, that's the foundation of financial independence. Because income can fluctuate, markets shift, opportunities come and go, but the profits you protect, the assets you grow, those are what create real security, real options, real freedom. It's why I always say, before you celebrate a paycheck, calculate the profit. Ask yourself after taxes, after expenses, after your lifestyle is covered, how much am I keeping? How much is being directed toward building my future? Because those dollars you save, those investments you make, they're employees working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, long after your working hours are done. And here's the thing. Anyone can start prioritizing profits. You don't need to be a millionaire to think this way. Whether you're earning a little or a lot, the principle applies. Be intentional with your money, track your surplus, protect your profits, and reinvest them wisely. Over time, that discipline compounds, and one day, you'll realize you're not just working for money anymore, your money is working for you. That's the mindset that transforms temporary income into lasting wealth. One of the greatest habits you can develop when it comes to building wealth is learning how to stretch your vision beyond today, beyond this month, even beyond this year. You see, most people live in a 90-day window. They think in terms of paychecks, weekends, the next holiday, or how to make it to Friday. But wealth doesn't grow inside short-term thinking. True wealth belongs to those who think in decades, not months. Those who ask not just, what does this dollar do for me now, but what can this dollar become for me 10 or 20 years from now? When I was young and broke, I didn't understand that. I used to spend every dollar that came my way. I lived for the moment, a nice dinner here, a fancy new gadget there. It felt good temporarily, but at the end of the month, I had nothing to show for all my hard work. And then someone sat me down and shared this principle with me that the wealthy think in decades. They don't measure success by how they feel this weekend. They measure it by how their assets, investments, and opportunities multiply year after year. So I started asking a new question every time money touched my hands. Instead of asking, what can I buy today? I started asking, what will this dollar be worth if I give it 20 years to work for me? And let me tell you, it changed everything. Because now, I wasn't just spending, I was planting. Every saved dollar, every invested dollar became a seed. And with patience, discipline, and time, those seeds began to grow, not overnight, but steadily, compounding into something far greater than I could have imagined. It's no different than farming. You don't plant a seed today and expect to harvest tomorrow. You give it time, seasons, years. But when you stay consistent, when you nurture the process, the harvest comes, and often it's far more abundant than the impatient ever see. Money works the same way. The dollars you invest today, protected and nurtured, can multiply over decades into financial freedom, but only if you maintain that long-term focus. So I challenge you, every time you earn, save, or spend, stretch your vision. Think beyond the next weekend. Think in terms of the next 10, 20, or 30 years. That's where real wealth lives, not in temporary pleasure, but in long-term multiplication. One of the most valuable lessons I ever learned about wealth is that money doesn't start with numbers, it starts with discipline. It starts with willpower. And here's the interesting thing about willpower. It's like a muscle. You don't build it by facing life's biggest temptations first. You build it by mastering the small daily battles. The little decisions most people overlook: the choice to say no to an unnecessary coffee, to ignore that flashy sale, to resist scrolling through distractions when there's real work to be done. Those are the moments where wealth building begins. You see, people often imagine financial success is built on some grand, dramatic event, the big investment, the $1 million deal, the unexpected windfall. But that's not the reality. Real wealth is created quietly, in the small choices, repeated with consistency. When I was first learning how to manage my own money, I didn't start by trying to resist luxury cars or extravagant vacations. I started with the little temptations, the urge to dine out too often, to buy things I didn't truly need, to say yes to every fleeting desire. And every time I said no to those small temptations, something remarkable happened. I became stronger, not just financially, but mentally. I proved to myself that I could delay gratification, that I could trade a short-term pleasure for a long-term gain. And once you build that discipline with the small things, saying no to bigger temptations, the impulsive purchase, the get-rich-quick schemes, the financial shortcuts become second nature. The truth is, wealth belongs to those with the strength to wait, those who can say no to what's easy now so they can say yes to what's extraordinary later. It's not just about sacrifice, it's about self-respect. Every no to a small temptation is a declaration that your future is worth more than your impulses. So I encourage you, start where you are. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Begin building your willpower today with small, consistent acts of discipline, because those small victories stack up. And before you know it, you'll find yourself saying yes to opportunities, investments, and financial wins that most people never reach all because you mastered the art of saying no when it mattered most. One of the greatest shifts in my thinking came the day I stopped treating my finances like a mystery and started treating them like a business. See, most people run their personal finances with less structure than a lemonade stand on a summer afternoon. Money comes in, money goes out, and at the end of the month, they wonder where it all disappeared to. But if you look at how successful businesses operate, they track every penny. They know exactly what's coming in, what's going out, and more importantly, they know their profit and loss. That's the mindset you need to adopt for your own life. Your household isn't just a collection of bills and income, it's an enterprise. And every enterprise needs a profit and loss statement. It doesn't matter if you're earning a little or a lot. If you don't know your numbers, you can't grow your numbers. I remember the first time I sat down and wrote out my personal profit and loss statement. I listed every stream of incomey jobs, side projects, even small interest earnings, and then I listed every expense. Rent, utilities, groceries, entertainment, even those little purchases we think don't matter. You'd be amazed how much those harmless expenses quietly drain your potential wealth. But here's where the magic happens. The moment you see your financial life clearly on paper, you gain power over it. You stop guessing, you stop hoping, and you start managing. You start asking the real questions. Where am I leaking money? Which expenses can I trim or eliminate? How can I increase my personal profit, not just earn more, but keep more? Treating your household like a business gives you structure. It transforms vague wishes of financial improvement into practical, trackable goals. Imagine a company that never reviewed its expenses or revenue. How long would they survive? Yet most people live that way, wondering why wealth feels so out of reach. But when you commit to this simple habit, month after month, everything changes. You start controlling your money instead of it controlling you. You start making decisions based on facts, not feelings. And little by little, you turn your household into the most important and successful business you'll ever manage, the business of your own financial future. You know, I've learned over the years that one of the biggest traps people fall into when building wealth is trying to look rich instead of becoming rich. It's easy to get caught up in appearances, the shiny car, the expensive watch, the house with more rooms than people. But here's the truth most never tell you. Real wealth isn't parked in the driveway. It's built quietly, often invisibly, through discipline, simplicity, and focus. I've met people with designer clothes who couldn't handle a $500 emergency. I've also met folks with worn-out shoes and a bank account that could make your head spin. See, wealth isn't about showcasing your status, it's about strengthening your foundation. You've got to ask yourself, do I want to impress strangers today or secure freedom for my future? When I started out, I didn't have much. But I decided early on to let my character, my word, my discipline define my reputation, not the car I drove or the watch on my wrist. I invested in books before I invested in gadgets. I upgraded my knowledge before I upgraded my lifestyle. And funny thing is, over time, as my results compounded, I could have had the flash, the luxury, but by then, I didn't need them to feel successful. Living simply doesn't mean living small. It means you make intentional choices. You learn to say, I'll drive this old car a little longer so I can invest in my future. You say, I don't need to eat at every expensive restaurant. I'll cook at home and build my surplus. And with every one of those choices, your confidence grows, your financial stability grows, your opportunities multiply. Eventually, simplicity becomes a strategy, not a sacrifice. And people will wonder how you quietly built so much while they were busy trying to look the part. That's when you smile, knowing your wealth is measured in freedom, not in flashy distractions. True wealth starts in the mind, is reinforced by character, and shows up quietly where it matters most. One of the most powerful lessons life ever taught me didn't come from a business seminar or a financial book. It came from standing at a gravesite. You see, there's something about confronting the brevity of life that sharpens your perspective. It makes you realize just how precious your time is, how finite your opportunities are, and how every dollar, whether spent, saved, invested, or given us, a reflection of your understanding that you won't be here forever. I often remind people you can't take your bank account with you, but you can leave behind the ripple effects of your decisions. You can build something that outlives you, a legacy of wisdom, contribution, security for your loved ones, or opportunities for those who follow. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you live and spend with that quiet awareness that life is short, but impact can be long. That means before you splurge on the fleeting, you pause and ask, is this purchase adding to my future or taking from it? It means when you save, you understand you're not just storing up money, you're buying time, options, peace of mind. When you invest, you're planting seeds for a harvest you may enjoy, but more importantly, others will benefit from even after you're gone. I've seen people chase money with no awareness of mortality. They accumulate, they hoard, they impress, but they forget that true wealth is not just what you acquire, it's what you leave behind, both in tangible assets and in the example you set. Every dollar you direct wisely becomes part of your legacy. The question is simple. When you're gone, will your money tell a story of impulsive spending and missed opportunities, or will it tell a story of discipline, contribution, and careful stewardship? Let the awareness of life's brevity guide you. Spend with intention, save with wisdom, invest with legacy in mind. Because in the end, how you manage your money becomes part of how the world remembers you. You know, one of the greatest traps a person can fall into is thinking, I've made it. That quiet little voice that creeps in after a bit of success, whispering that you can coast now, that you've done enough, that the mountain's been climbed. But here's the truth I've learned. Over the years, the moment you settle is the moment you start sliding backward. There's no such thing as standing still when it comes to growth, especially financial growth. You're either moving forward, refining, stretching your abilities, or you're shrinking without even realizing it. That's why I believe with every fiber of my being that improvement is not an event, it's a way of life. It's a discipline. The wealthiest, the happiest, the most fulfilled people I've met didn't get that way because they were lucky or because they stumbled onto a magic formula. They got that way because they made the decision to stay hungry, not desperate, but driven. Every victory wasn't a finish line, it was a foundation, a place to stand and look higher. When I started to experience success, small at first, I had two options: celebrate, relax, and enjoy the comfort zone, or use that success as proof I could aim even higher. I chose the latter. Every book I read, every seminar I attended, every conversation with a mentor, it wasn't about fixing weakness anymore. It was about sharpening strength. It was about expanding vision. You earn a little more? Great, now learn to manage it better. You save your first $1,000? Wonderful, now figure out how to multiply it. You build one income stream? Fantastic. Now ask how to create a second or a third. Never let success lull you into complacency. Let it fuel your curiosity. Improvement isn't punishment, it's the privilege of those who understand that potential is infinite, but only if you keep reaching. The minute you settle, the growth stops. But the minute you treat every accomplishment as the doorway to another level, life keeps unfolding richer and fuller than you imagined. You know, life has a funny way of getting complicated all by itself. You don't have to do much. Just let the days pass. Say yes to everything. Buy a little of this, a little of that, and before you know it, your house is full, your calendar's packed, your mind's cluttered, and your bank account's gasping for air. That's why one of the most powerful things I ever learned, and one of the greatest disciplines you can adopt, is the practice of radical simplicity. Now, I'm not talking about deprivation. I'm not telling you to live like a monk or give away everything you own. I'm talking about intentional reduction, clearing the noise, the distractions, the unnecessary, so you have space to focus, space to think, space to build. You see, wealth real, lasting wealth doesn't come from chaos. It doesn't thrive in clutter. It grows best in clarity. I remember when I first started making a little more money, the temptation to accumulate was strong. A new gadget here, an extra subscription there, saying yes to every meeting, every opportunity, every shiny object that crossed my path. And before long, I realized my attention was divided, my energy was diluted, and my money was slipping through my fingers faster than I could earn it. So I did something most people resist. I simplified. I started with my schedule. I asked, what really moves me toward my vision? What's just noise? Meetings got cut, distractions eliminated. Then I looked at my possessions. I realized I didn't need more things. I needed fewer, better things, tools, not toys. And the same applied to my finances. I trimmed the fat expenses that didn't align with my long-term goals disappeared. The result? Space. Space to think clearly, space to grow intentionally. Space to invest not just money, but time, energy, and focus into what truly mattered. Radical simplicity isn't a sacrifice. It's a strategy. A way to design your life so everything has purpose and nothing weighs you down. And when your life is light, your vision is clear, and your resources are aligned, that's when wealth starts building, brick by brick, with power and precision. One of the most expensive habits I've ever seen in people's lives is the habit of impulse, those quick, emotionally charged decisions made in a moment of weakness. You've probably felt it too. You walk into a store after a long day, your energy's low, maybe you skip lunch, your mind's scattered, and suddenly that shiny new thing in the window feels like the solution to all your problems. You don't think, you swipe the card, you bring it home, and within hours or days, the regret sets in, the money's gone, and so is the clarity. That's why one of the disciplines I trained myself in early on was this: never make financial decisions when I'm tired, hungry, or emotional. You see, when your energy's depleted, your mind isn't sharp. When your body's craving fuel, your judgment's off. And when your emotions are running high, whether from excitement, frustration, or stress, you're not thinking with your long-term vision. You're thinking with your impulses I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my journey, I made some purchases after exhausting days, telling myself I deserved it. I invested in opportunities when I was emotionally high, only to realize later, excitement isn't a strategy, it's a liability if you don't pair it with reason. That's when I created the rule. Pause. Step back. Eat a meal. Rest your mind. Let the emotions settle before making any decision that affects your finances. It's incredible what happens when you give yourself that space. The thing that felt urgent, it often loses its grip. The expense that seemed justified, you see it for what it really is, a want, not a need. And the decisions you do make, they're based on reason, clarity, and alignment with your goals, not temporary feelings. Building wealth isn't just about the big strategies. It's about protecting yourself from small leaks, those moments of weakness that drain your potential. Discipline, especially in those fragile moments, is the silent force that keeps your future intact. So remember, when you're tired, hungry, or emotional, pause. Your financial future depends on the decisions you make when you think clearly, not when you feel desperate. Let me leave you with this. Wealth is not built in a moment. It's built in the quiet, consistent disciplines we practice when no one's watching. It's not the grand gestures that secure your future, but the daily choices choosing clarity over impulse, value over noise, discipline over distraction. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight, but you do need to begin. Small steps, practiced consistently, compound into extraordinary results. Ask yourself, where can I tighten my habits? Protect my time, respect my resources? Where have I been letting impulse steal from my future? Start there. Review your finances. Track your spending. Delay the emotional decisions. Feed your mind with knowledge before you chase shiny opportunities. It's those simple shifts repeated daily that transform ordinary lives into extraordinary stories of wealth and freedom. So here's your call to action. Don't let today's insight fade into tomorrow's forgotten intention. Choose one discipline, one adjustment, and begin now. The future doesn't wait, and neither should you. Your rich financial future isn't out there, it starts within. With your mindset, your habits, your daily choices, begin building it today.